Hello and welcome to a brand new Kemetic segment. Consider this a Christmas present. We're going to try something different because I'm your host Sharon and my co-host is...
Darren. That's my name, that's right, I remembered it, yay! I can have forks soon.
And I'm calling this segment Kemetic Crossroads. This is going to be an Interfaith segment. And since it's Christmas time, I figured today we would talk about being pagan at Christmas time and dealing with our friends who are celebrating the season. To start off with, for most converts to paganism, Christianity is associated with painful memories because, face it, if we still felt good about being Christian, then we wouldn't be here. So the question becomes, how do we find a measure of acceptance without accusation and coexistence without conversion? Christmas, of course, is the biggest holiday in the Christian liturgical calendar. It's also the biggest holiday in the secular calendar, too. And there's always a lot of angst that goes around at this time of year. And a lot of us probably have our own horror stories about Christmas. Probably the most significant one I can think of is that my maternal grandfather died on Christmas Eve morning. And he had been sick for a long time, and nobody told me about it. I just woke up that morning, and my mom was gone, and I overheard my dad talking to somebody on the phone about his father-in-law passing away. That's a great way to learn that you had a family member die that morning. So, and then everybody, for the rest of the day, tried to act like nothing was going on. So that was a really weird Christmas. And I'm sure everybody's got a story like that they can tell. But this being a stressful time of year, you add on top of that differences in religion, and somebody can really feel alienated. So how do we navigate this merry minefield? This is where we talk to Darren, who is what I would call a cool Christian, and I'll let you explain a little more about that.
What, being a cool Christian?
Well, yeah, well, your beliefs are atypical, I think, compared to a lot of the other folks. The ones that we're going to call in this segment Christians behaving badly.
Well, it's a very interesting label, because for me, Christians behaving badly is most of us most of the time. And that's because most folks who are Christian, and I believe most people who call themselves that, legitimately want to be that, but they've spent very little time not only with the Word, but they spend very little time with themselves and have never asked themselves, what does it mean for me to be Christian? To say I'm sorry for anyone who's had bad memories at Christmas is an understatement, because I think at some point in our lives that encompasses all of us, myself included.
Yeah, I think that's something that I'm sure you'd want to point out, is that there are even Christians who hate Christmas time. And there are Christians who have to deal with drama and all the other stress that comes with the holidays.
Most people hate Christmas time for the same reason they hate Mondays, Tuesdays, Wednesdays, Thursdays, and Fridays. Because most of those days suck. Because life happens, and that's as politely as I can put it.
One of the tips that I think we had come up with as we were talking about how to handle this, as being non-Christian and trying to interact with people who are Christian, is to concentrate on building relationships with people and not making religion the first thing that you talk about.
Or to put it a different way, when we initially talked about this question, we had said, how do we as non-Christians associate with people that are Christian and not have, religion be the first thing? And the answer is, don't let it be the first thing. Build a relationship with any person the way you normally would. Most people never start off with, what faith do you follow, unless you're in the South and it happens to be Sunday. And if most people answered truthfully, they would say, I follow the Dallas Cowboy path or the New Orleans Saints path, and I will fight you to the death because of it. But when you start a relationship with somebody, we should never start with our differences, and that's one of the things that people do regardless of what faith they are, what occupation they are, what race, creed, orientation, no matter. We tend to start with our differences and go, oh yeah? When what we need to do is dare ourselves to find out what we have in common, build on that first. The rest of it will come. And you know, the old rule about avoid religion and politics, do yourself a favor. Especially in the holidays, avoid it like the plague.
What, in your beliefs as a Christian, allow you to find acceptance with people who are not Christian?
Okay. This is a very tough question for me. Not because it's hard for me to find or to give acceptance to people who aren't Christian. It's because I don't quote verse very well. But when you read, it talks about Christ being around the least of society, the outcasts. And my personal thought is, how can we achieve anything of a proper Christian existence if we're going around judging people, not understanding people, not accepting people, and not showing people what it is to be a Christian of ultimate love and acceptance if we're not doing some of that loving and accepting? If I can't believe in my God strong enough to let you have yours, what good am I? That's my personal thought. That's just the way I roll. No pun intended, blue parking forever.
I think another thing that we talked about that we found rather helpful is to separate your Christmas hate. And, you know, I'm not saying that like it's a bad thing. You know, we all have our own version of Christmas hate, you know, and separate the hate because of, in general, from your Christmas hate because of, you know, religion, because of, you know, Christians behaving badly. In other words, identify what bothers you or makes you blue about the holidays. You know, is it from people in your experience just being jerks? Or is it because of those Christians behaving badly?
A little bit of self-disclosure here. I am a Christian, and as you see, I live in a mixed faith household. I don't have any problem with that whatsoever. And I haven't been to church in years because I have yet to find a church that teaches that unconditional acceptance and love. And that Christianity needs to begin with one person, and that's the person in the mirror. If you're a Christian, before you start talking to anybody else about the love of God or the love of Christ, you better have your own crap together first. That's why I don't say much, because I'm still working on getting my crap together. Because one of the things it also talks about is don't go to preach the word unless you're absolutely ready for it. And that's why I haven't. And many people have asked, why don't you? Because that's a huge commitment. And I know I'm a flawed and frail soul. And before I make such commitment, I have to make sure I'm ready.
Yeah, it's funny because I started doing things like the Kemetic Independent channel and writing the books because I felt like that was something that needed to be said. And at the time, I was thinking, well, I have lots of other things that I'm trying to do. And, you know, yeah, I'll go for a long time not working on something, you know, Kemetic related because I've got, you know, a million other irons in the fire. But I felt that it was something that needed to be said. And, you know, sometimes, you know, that just happens. The one quote from the Michael Bay Transformers movies that I actually liked is something Optimus Prime said about fate seldom calls us at a time of our own choosing.
That's a fact. I hope the clarification helps, guys. If you have any other questions, not that I'm an encyclopedia of knowledge or in the end-all be-all of anything. I can only give it to you as I see it, but I promise to you, there's not going to be any judgment involved when I do.
Yeah. And actually, one of the reasons why I decided to try this segment is because I did see some questions on the Facebook page, from somebody who is in an interfaith household, and wanted to know, well, was there some way that she and her boyfriend could, worship, in harmony with each other. And so, I thought this might be a, good thing to explore.
Well, let's talk about exactly that for a minute. Because in this household, obviously, I don't expect her to say a prayer to the Christian God or to Jesus.
Mm-hmm.
And she doesn't expect me to say a prayer to Ra, Horus, Isis, or any of the crew. But I will tell you this. I do not worship the Egyptian gods, but I know of all of them, and I appreciate them too.
And Sekhmet likes you very much.
Because I see what they've done for her and for me. I will tell you right straight up. I've had personal experience with Sekhmet. She has spoken to me directly. And she's taken care of a good few aches and pains too. So, yeah, I'll give her thanks for that.
Mm-hmm.
But it doesn't mean I'm throwing away my God. I love my God enough to know what He's done for me. And I try to serve Him daily. But one of the ways I try to serve Him is to prove that hate doesn't exist when it comes to other faiths. Especially those that I don't understand. And there's nothing that I will say that I refuse to understand. There are things I don't do. There are things I will disagree with. Luckily, I don't have many of those in this house.
Yeah.
I don't have any of those in this house, come to think of it. But you can't come together if both sides are walking toward one another. They don't have to overlap, but they do have to accept. That's the key thing.
Yeah, and there are times when we've had rituals here that, were Kemetic rituals, and I'll leave a space, for people to call upon, the gods of their choosing, and that gives you a chance to, invoke, the Christian God and Jesus Christ, and
that's right.
We leave that space open.
And, I interpret things in my own practice and my own faith, my own way. And a lot of Christians would disagree with me and they'd want to argue. And you know what I would simply tell them? You worship in your way, I'll worship in mine. It's not a question of what's right or wrong, it's a question of what works.
Mm-hmm. As far as Christmas time goes, one thing that I do have to confess, and this is something that I think that we both have problems with, is the people who get pushy with saying Merry Christmas. Because, and this doesn't happen all the time. There are plenty of people that you can tell they're saying Merry Christmas because, that's, the traditional greeting, and they're genuinely trying to wish you, a joyous time of the year. But you can tell when people are being intrusive with it, and, it feels pushy, when they really, put the emphasis on the Merry Christmas part. And that's... It's kind of annoying, the people that have basically weaponized a traditional greeting, and that it's like saying Happy Holidays isn't specific enough for them.
And if I may, I'd like to say something about weaponizing Merry Christmas.
Sure.
For those innocent souls that purely mean it as, Merry Christmas, and they don't know anything about your faith, or even if they do, if they wish you Merry Christmas, wish them Merry Christmas back if you wish. If not, say,
and you too.
Same to you, Happy Holidays,
Mm-hmm.
and that's fine. And for those folks that do say Merry Christmas with a bit of a forceful edge, you know what? Let them have it, because their words and their intent cannot change you. Only you can. If they would need to hear Merry Christmas that bad, please give it to them. Because if they're pushing it that hard, it means they don't hear it that much.
Well, see, a lot of times what I do is I just go, you too.
And you know what? You too is perfectly fine. I love every U2 album there's been. And I'd love to see Bono in a Santa hat. But that's another topic. It's only a weapon if we let them make it one. You know, if people need to believe they're under attack to feel like they have something worth doing in life, you let that be their sin. You let that be their detriment. And I did say sin for a reason, because when people have to have that negativity to feel alive, what they're basically saying is, hope to be damned. And we don't ever want to commit the sin of damnation.
Or I think our friend Tina, she's a practicing Catholic, and she pointed out that there's such a thing as the sin of despair, and that's where you are despairing in God's ability to save someone.
Right.
So if you're telling someone they're going to hell, you're committing the sin of despair because you've despaired in God's ability to save them.
That's it.
You know, so
that's exactly
that's
what
something
I mean.
that's another tool for the arsenal, I guess, if you're dealing with Christians behaving badly.
She's so much smarter than me. But whatever you do, folks, don't let somebody else's lack of character provide you with a segue to show yours. Whatever you do.
Yeah.
You don't need to be right, you just need to be happy. Some of the best advice I've ever heard given before a wedding was a father looked at his son and asked him, do you want to be right or do you want to be happy? Let me tell you, there's something to that. We've been together 23 years. It's much more important to be happy. Because when she ain't happy, nobody happy.
Some other observations. Of course, this being Christmas time, you'll see there's lots of little memes around the internet that compare Jesus to either Horus or Osiris. And I think I know where this comes from. There was a book put out in 1999 called The Jesus Mysteries. And I actually was able to track this down on Google Books and start reading through part of it. And it wasn't very well researched, I think. And it kind of drew a lot of sweeping conclusions. And I think that's where a lot of this comes from, this idea that, Osiris or Horus were born on December 25th, and, there's an association with 12, and all this other stuff. That's conflating a whole bunch of things that, have nothing to do with Egyptian religion. So if you see those things on the internet, they're just memes, and they're not very well researched ones. One other bit of advice that I have, that I've found, because I went through a lot of holiday malaise over, many years, and you can ask Darren, I think it was worse when I didn't have anything to do for the Christmas holiday that I could say was, mine, and, it's not Christian, but it's something that I can do that celebrates the season, being around, the solstice and all this. Because, I never went through a phase where I was, Wiccan or, observed the winter solstice as a holiday. So, when I was practicing as a Buddhist, it's like, okay, I'm just killing time until New Year's, because New Year's is a bigger thing, in Buddhist tradition. When you can find something that you can observe around the same time, it makes it easier to coexist, in my opinion, because you can say, well, all right, Merry Christmas to you, and in the meantime, I'm going to be celebrating the Feast of Neith, or, something like that.
And we do celebrate those around here, too. Why? Because A, it's really freaking cool. B, there's food. C, there's fellowship. And that C one, that fellowship thing, that's important, because when it all comes down to it, we may not need 7 billion people on this earth, but we all do need the ones we know and the folks we've got. Coexistence, it's not only important, it's vital.
So what you're saying is, you don't have to get along with everybody, but if you can get along with the people in your sphere, that makes life go a lot more smoothly.
And guys, I want to say thank you to all of you watching, because I can't tell you how much doing this has improved both of our lives, but I really want to tell you thank you for how much it's improved Sharon's. I'm serious, guys. She has something to do, she has something to say, and she has folks that talk back to her in a good way. And I'm grateful for how much she's grown as a person, and I have all of you to thank for that. So, thank you. Happy holidays. Merry Christmas. With no force.
Yeah.
And if you don't want to have that on your Starbucks, you tell them.
One other thing to share a little bit more opinion, because at Christmas time, there's a tradition that the folks in the Kemetic Orthodox started, and it's almost like become kind of a meme, and they, because the way their calendar works, right around December 25th, is, it varies year to year, but the feast of establishing the celestial cow, which I think in historical times that was a relatively minor festival, but they've turned it into this whole thing that they call Moomas, and I've seen a few folks even trying to spoof things like the night before Christmas and make it like an Egyptian theme, and I'm like, huh? Because for me, if you want to do something different from Christmas, don't try to copy Christmas, wholesale into another thing. Don't try and spoof it. Be different, okay? In the way I reckon the calendar, December 25th is when Neith and Sobek go forth, and a couple of days before that, Neith has a feast where the doors of her temple are opened. But it's better, in my opinion, to do something that's different, so you're not trying to be deliberately contrary and insist on telling people Merry Moomas or something. I don't know, that it's just, that's just my 2 cents.
Well, criticisms aside, the message needs to be the same for everybody. Make the holidays yours. Make your holiday yours, even if you're the only one that appreciates what you do. If you appreciate it, I guarantee you, somewhere along the way there's going to be a window to share it. Somebody else might too.
I actually made this little clay model of, Neith's shrine. The only thing is, I figured out you put a candle under that and it gets really hot, so I'm still working on the prototype. That is the House of Neith, as I imagine. Sculpting is not my forte, but the doors are open, the candle's supposed to go inside, but that part got really, really hot and I didn't want it to either burn up or crack, so there we have it. It's lit.
See guys, this is awesome. And I've been dying to do this, so please forgive me. Here's the church. Here's the steeple. Open the doors. Where are the people?
And here we have symbol of Neith. Donald Twist ties. Set it next to her.
And yes, I think it's really neat. Forgive the pun.
Well, that's a good way to remember how you pronounce her name. Ooh, neat.
Yeah.
There you go.
Neat. Not to be confused with cool, gnarly, or awesome. Neat.
Yeah. Okay.
Cool.
Well, hopefully this gives you a framework for dealing with the holidays as a non-Christian, and gives you some talking points, and maybe a starting point with other people that you might not know how to approach or reconcile with. And if you've got some questions about topics relating to that, and well, as a pagan, how do I broach this or that with someone who's Christian, or things of that sort, shoot those questions to me and we'll try to address them next month in another segment. What?
You want me back?
Well, YouTube, you guys tell us. You want to have Darren come back and do another one? sound off in the comment section. Also, Patreon account, or excuse me, I've been watching their videos. It's Patreon, and I'm getting that set up right now. If I don't have it up as of the airing of this video, it should be pretty soon, and then I'll give you guys a blast with the link for that, and we'll have the tier set up, and I'm already saving outtakes for one of the reward levels on that. So
this entire episode will be an outtake. Thank you.
Well, I might see if we can do some special broadcasts, and things like that. Because there's a way that you can do that mobile through the phone, and we could go outside and do fun outdoor rituals or something like that.
Or we could broadcast live from our car. Maybe.
Well, if it's relevant.
Relevancy? We have to be relevant?
From both of us at the Kemetic Independent channel, here's wishing you guys happy holidays.
Happy holidays.